Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another instructional video from Leidos Flight Service. My name is Jeff Arnold. Let's get started. Today I want to talk about flight plans and how to use the plane and brief page, including how to use, file, amend, cancel, generate a Navlog, and some other cool features. To get started, make sure that you're logged into your account on 1-800-WX-BRIEF. After you're logged in, navigate up to the Plane and Brief tab and then the Plane and Brief button. You'll see a blank flight plan form, or as we call it, a flight plan mask. Some of the features available to you include recent flight plans, where you can see and access previous plans that you've filed, and favorite flight plans, where you can save and reuse flight plans without re-entering tedious information each time. For example, I have a saved flight plan from San Antonio, Texas to Dallas Redbird Executive, and we're going to use that for our demonstration purposes today. You'll notice that the flight plan form has underlined headers in each field. You can hover over these headers and receive help information, or you can click on these headers and get a pop-up window with the same help information. We'll provide as much help as we can. However, some of this information may not be readily available. To start with my aircraft ID, I've got a test call sign in, test AW, but you can store and save different aircraft and profiles in your flight plan. As you can see, I've got flight plan sharing with Kent State University. I can pick one of their aircraft if I'd like. For the purposes of this demonstration, I've got a Cessna 172 aircraft loaded into my profile. From here, you can go to box 2, the flight rules section, and you'll notice a drop down. In about 2 weeks, or at least 2 weeks from the recording of this video, the YFR and ZFR options will be removed from this flight plan. So again, we'll be left with only VFR and IFR, further simplifying the flight plan form for you. The flight type, again, we're going to, in a couple of weeks when we update our system, this will be an optional field, but for the purpose of this, we're going to use general. You have military, scheduled, and some other of these categories. Pick the one that's appropriate to you and your flight. The number of aircraft field will be for, say you're in a flight of 2 or a flight of 3 aircraft. That's where you would denote that on a single flight plan form in this field. For aircraft type, again, I've got a Cessna 172 loaded into my profile, but if you have a different aircraft or if you're having a hard time finding the identifier, you can click the magnifying glass, and for example, it's going to bring up everything that I have under Cessna 172 or Charlie 172. This is a very expansive database, so you can type in just about whatever you're looking for. I do caution you, though, it does help to be specific because, again, as you can see, it's a very expansive database. And there are a lot of different codes out there. We're going to stick with Cessna 172. Again, that's a lightweight turbulence category aircraft. If you're unsure about your aircraft, you can look that up in the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. When we get to the aircraft equipment field, right now I've got standard and GPS equipment, but if you don't know what equipment you have, it's imperative that you find out what's on board your aircraft and what you're capable of using before you file your flight plan. If you're unsure of what to code it, simply hit the magnifying glass on the right, and we'll give you as much help as we're able to. We'll give you kind of a menu that you can come in and select the different qualities or equipment that's on your aircraft. This takes us to the departure field, and you'll notice that there's a magnifying glass next to San Antonio. And I don't have to put kilo in front of San Antonio. In this case, it's generally understood that a 3-letter identifier in the departure field is the airport. But again, there could be a nav aid co-located on the field with the same identifier. So you'll want to make sure that you're well up to speed on any nav aids that you may be using or any nav aids that are near your route flight or your departure destination airport that share an identifier. But for additional information, you can see that I've hovered over the help text here, and that'll kind of run through and give you all the different categories or scenarios in which you may need to be aware. The magnifying glass, for example, you can click on and it'll take you right back to that to a database for airports. And as you can see, when we click on SAT, again, it helps to be specific. If we click the exact match button, it's going to give us everything with Sierra Alpha Tango. So we have VORDV. I'm not sure where that is, but that doesn't look like it's in the U.S. But you have the San Antonio VORTAC, and you have the San Antonio International Airport as well. So we're going to click on the airport. You'll notice a couple other buttons. If you hit the airport info button, it's going to bring up a page very close and very similar to the chart supplement. Again, you can scroll through this and get all the information that you need. You can print it, but you're going to see airport communications as you keep scrolling down. Nearby nav aids, NDBs, rest in peace if they're still active. Any runway information that may be available, services, ownership, any remarks, aka published notams. And then at the bottom, you'll see a lot of different PDF links. So for example, if you wanted to look at the published chart supplement page for San Antonio, you could click on that and it'll bring up a PDF giving you that information. Again, you can print that out, do whatever it is that you do. Going back to that page, you'll also notice, again, an airport diagram, takeoff mins, any departures or stars that are published for the airfield, approach plates, and then again we have legends and general information and an airport diagram legend at the bottom of each one of these airport information pages. Again, all of this is here for your consumption and for you to be able to access easily and quickly. The other briefing that I have right below that is the area briefing button. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say that you're taking off out of San Antonio and you're a student pilot and you don't plan on landing at another airport, but you are going to go out to the practice area 25 miles away, burn some holes in the sky, do some maneuvers, that kind of thing, and then come back into San Antonio. That's where the area brief button is your friend. You can click on the area briefing button, and it may not let me since I haven't filled out the required fields, but essentially what you can do is this will generate a briefing. I'll show you in just a second. This will generate a briefing for about a 25 nautical mile radius around San Antonio. You'll notice that when I put the departure time in here, and again, I just typed in 20, apply minutes from now, and that's in Zulu time. And again, you can change this to your heart's content. You'll notice that the sunrise and sunset times appeared over here as well underneath the departure and the destination airports. So I'm going to try and hit that area briefing button one more time. And here we go. So as you can see, it's going to bring up a customization menu for your briefing. So in other words, what FDC, I'm sorry, skipping ahead. So area settings, area briefing radius, I want 25 nautical miles. That's the lowest setting. The highest setting is 100 nautical miles. Winds aloft briefing radius for 100 nautical mile radius. Again, you can go from 50 all the way up to 300. I'd like to include graphics, next-gen content, and again, if you'd like plain text translations for encoded, what's the word I'm looking for here? Encoded products like a METAR, a TAF, a pilot report. So you can click that button and we'll give you a plain text translation for that product as well. Briefing content filters, again, only include the most recent METARs within the last hour or so. You can come in and decide which nav notams that you'd like included, FDC notams, optional briefing products, that kind of thing. Again, whatever it is that fits your flight, you have a standard abbreviated and Outlook button across the top. And then you can decide, how are we going to deliver this information to you? Would you like it on the web page? Would you like it in a PDF? Or would you like us to email it to you? And I'll come back to these three buttons and these three briefing types across the top, either in a later video or later on today. For now, we're going to keep going with the departure date and time. Again, this is pretty straightforward. We've already spoken of this, but if you are leaving in the future, you can click this date window and pick the date that you'll be leaving. The evaluate button. This tool is primarily used for pilots to make a go or no-go decision. And in this case, we've got pretty great summer weather there across Texas, although it's hot. But what you see here is you'll see the departure time that I selected, 18:15 Zulu. And then you'll see our increments as we go down this column on the left. And what you can see, I've got San Antonio, I've got my destination at Redbird, and I'm showing the TAFs across this entire route of flight, showing VFR conditions at this time. Anytime that you see cross-hatching in the background, that means that adverse conditions exist for that area or that portion of your route of flight. In this case, I believe that's the Crawford George W. Bush Ranch, about 2/3 of the way into this flight, and it looks like I have some adverse conditions as I get into Redbird as well. How do we define an adverse condition? An adverse condition is going to be anything that prevents you or makes you take pause from taking this flight. So, for example, airmets, sigmets, convective sigmets, airport or runway closures, TFRs, that kind of thing. If you'd like details on what those are, you can simply come down and hit the detail. And we've also got a video that you can watch on this if you'd like it. Click on the detail button, you'll notice that out of San Antonio, we've got a closed and unsafe airport or runway. I believe that's a runway closure. And then we've got TFRs as we get into the Dallas area. So a TFR, again, 2/3 along the route of flight. Again, that is the George W. Bush Ranch in Crawford. And then we have the George W. Bush TFR as well. They're in Dallas. Again, if you get into that TFR, you're in someone else's surface airspace. So not a huge concern for this particular flight. But if there are any other adverse conditions, we'll list them here, kind of along, and again, where they are on your route of flight and when you're going to be intersecting that condition. The idea here is, and if you look at this blue arrow, you can kind of skip forward in time in hour increments to choose the best departure time. And that's why we call that the Evaluate Departure tool. So again, this is a super useful tool. I don't have a lot to show you because I picked a pretty weather day there in Texas, but try it out on your own. I'm going to back and we'll go to cruising speed. Again, you no longer have to enter the November 0115. You can simply type in 115 and our computer will do the rest for you. The same thing for your altitude, 6,500 feet, and it's going to automatically convert that to 6,500. What if I want to go up into the flight levels? Well, we change that to flight level 190, and you'll notice that it puts an F, as in Foxtrot, in front of that 190. So again, the system is there to help you. The Optimize button is so that you can optimize your altitude for the ideal estimated time en route and fuel burn. So for example, this is going to take a look at the winds aloft at your across your route of flight. And we're going to do some number crunching with the aircraft information that you put in your pilot profile. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot of difference here. Again, lower looks to be a little bit better. We might even save a minute here at 4,500 feet. But as you can see, the higher we go, the longer it'll take. An hour and 44 minutes and 15.7 gallons of gas versus a 6,500. An hour and 39 minutes and 15.1 gallons of gas. With gas being so expensive, that 0.6, I'll take it. That takes us to surveillance equipment. Again, very similar to aircraft equipment. You really need to have a good idea of what's on board your aircraft before you try to enter anything in here. Again, avionics tech or the POH or the aircraft documents that you have, you can give you a little bit of insight on what the equipment is on board. But you can click the magnifying glass here and again, get kind of a pop-up window that will help you determine what you have and make the right selection here. This takes us to our route of flight, and I've got direct in our route of flight. But let's say that I don't want to go direct, or let's say that I'm planning an IFR cross-country. So for example, I can hit the plan button and I've got several different options here. GPS direct, recent ATC assigned. I'm going to pick on low altitude Victor Airways. And again, if you'd like to use a SID or a star, and there are certainly SIDs and stars available for the San Antonio and DFW metroplexes, I'm going to leave those out for now, but it's just a drop-down menu. You need to have a good idea of what direction these SIDs and stars are facing or departing to before you pick one. But I'm going to go ahead and click low altitude Victor Airways, and then I'm going to hit the Find Routes button. And you'll notice that it has given me a good route, the Shep intersection. Oops, I double clicked it. Let's try that again. The Shep intersection, Victor 17, Waco, Victor 54 to MP. And if I'm not quite sure if I want this route, I can hit the map button. It's going to show me a little excerpt of the map. And again, that looks like a relatively direct, at least for IFR filing with Victor Airways. I'll take it. So I'm going to hit select, and as you'll see, that route is now in my route of flight, and we're ready to go. If I want to look at this, I'm not going to click on it now, but clicking on this map button is the exact same as clicking on this map button up here. It'll just take you over to the interactive map. I said I wasn't going to do it, but here we are. And you can come in and take a look at your weather as you see fit. This button on the flight plan mask, we've got a little mini flight plan mask on our interactive map. This will take you right back to the plan and brief button. And that pretty much wraps up the route of flight field. Again, lots of help information here if you need it. The other information field is going to be just like the surveillance and aircraft equipment fields. You've got a good magnifying glass here. You can come in and there are a lot of different settings to this, a lot of different scenarios and codes. I'm not going to get into all of those here, but you can come in and select these from a drop-down menu. Probably the one that you're most going to use will be either the remark button, or if you're crossing, say if you're flying down into Mexico, the EET, etc. All right, so that takes us down to our destination. Redbird Executive there in Dallas. Again, you've got the same airport information button up here that you had for San Antonio, the same area briefing. My EET time, so how long will this flight take me? I can hit the calculate button, and we're going to do a little bit of number crunching. And that's there's the computer saying it's going to be about an hour and 45 minutes en route. That sounds good to me. I'm going to hit accept, and I'm moving on. Now, here's a little bit of a flight plan hack. If you're planning on getting a route briefing, and this is important, let's say that I was going to fly and do a touch and go at Waco on the way up here. In this instance, Alpha Charlie Tango is the Waco VORTAC. But let's say that I wanted to land at that airport. If you put an airport in the route of flight, our system will not pull NOTAMs for that airport. And you'll find them in the en route NOTAMs, but they're buried. Again, our briefings, and we're well aware of it, are 35-page briefing, and 25 pages of them are NOTAMs. That's simply the way that the system exists. But what you can do is you can put that other airport in the alternate field, and now when you generate a briefing, you'll also generate a briefing for that airport under the alternate category, and I'll show that to you here in just a few minutes. Same thing for alternate number 2. Again, you've got the same kind of buttons and features here. The magnifying glass to access the airport database, airport info, area briefings, that kind of thing for number 1 and 2. Fuel endurance is going to be in hours and minutes, not gallons. So in this case, I'm going to say that I have 5 hours of fuel on board, 2 people on board. And again, if you're unsure of the exact color markings, you can hit the magnifying glass. I've got orange and white because I'm an Oklahoma State graduate, and that's just the way the world is. Supplemental remarks, again, you can enter alphanumeric characters into this field. Pilot and command, again, that's another optional field. Any emergency, survival, or jackets here, again, you can check these as appropriate. Dinghies as well, and then pilot contact information you'll enter like you would a standard flight plan. There's no need to put your address. Your home base is just fine. For me, that'll be Fort Worth Alliance. So I've got a full flight plan here, and it's completely filled out. I can hit the file button, and that flight plan will be filed. Flight plan successfully filed. I'm also registered for Easy Activate and Easy Close for my work email and my work phone number. So again, I should be getting messages on those devices here imminently. From here, you'll notice that the buttons at the bottom changed. I can amend this flight plan, in which case I would just make an amendment. Say I wanted to change persons on board. I could make that into 3, hit amend, and we should be good to go there. Flight plan successfully amended. I can cancel this flight plan. I can activate it, and I can generate a Navlog. An important thing to note about activating a flight plan: just because you file a VFR flight plan does not mean that it is activated. Those are two separate actions, right? Filing a flight plan means, hey, this flight plan is on file, this is what we're planning on doing. And then activating a flight plan is essentially saying, we're taking off and we are activating this flight plan for search and rescue purposes. For now, I'm going to go ahead and hit the cancel button. It'll give me a confirmation message, yes, I'm sure, and we've been successfully canceled. Once this page reloads, I'm going to hit the Navlog button. Uh-oh, I killed the whole thing, didn't I? Not to fear, that's where your favorite flight plans comes in handy. Again, I've got most of this loaded back up. I'm going to say we're still going to depart in 20 minutes. I've still got 5 hours of gas, and we should be right back to where we started. I'll put Alpha Charlie Tango here in the alternate field. And yeah, we don't need the route of flight that I had. But I want to hit the Navlog. And you'll come up with another customization dialog box. So again, Navlog settings, and again, this is totally user preference. You can do a Navlog with no winds. You can display top of climb and top of descent. Again, if you do use one of those long Victor Airway route of flights, you can only enter the airway and the airway entry and exit fixes, or you can display all the fixes on that airway. It's totally up to you. Lastly, you can generate this on a kneeboard friendly format that you can print out and put on your kneeboard, or you can just do a full page. You can generate a PDF, you can send an email, totally up to the user. When we send an email, again, this is just going to come in, and you can enter up to 5 emails, and in this case I want it sent to jeffrey.c.arnold@leidos.com. If I had others I could do it. We can hit send and we're done. The last couple of things that I want to talk about, this route briefing button is going to be how you generate a standard weather briefing on our system. When we hit this, and I'm not going to generate a briefing, it'd take too long to go into for today, but this is the same menu that you saw before that we kind of spoke to for the area type briefing. Again, standard, you can come in and again, customize this to the user's content. We'll talk about each one of these in a later video. But when you click on the abbreviated briefing tab, you'll notice that you can come in and really cherry pick not only what NOTAM information you want included, but also what specific weather products you'd like included in your briefing. So again, pretty powerful tool. Really recommend that student pilots avoid the abbreviated briefing section unless you really know what you're looking for, or if you're looking for something specific. And of course, our Outlook briefings will be for anything 6 hours or more into the future, and we'll have a few user settings that you can choose here as well. Again, same types of delivery methods, web briefing, PDF. I want to click on email really quickly. You'll notice that you can not only select the emails that you want to send it to, but you can also select a date and time in which you would like that email sent. So that feature is there and available for you as well. The last couple of buttons that I want to talk about before we wrap this up: the return flight plan and the next leg flight plan. And of course, the clear button is pretty self-explanatory. This will clear everything in the flight plan mask. The return flight plan button would be, for example, if I'm based out of San Antonio, I'm flying from San Antonio to Redbird, and I plan on eating a $100 hamburger and I want to go home. So I'd hit the return flight plan button, and what this is going to do is just reverse your flight plan. And again, this was done with minimal changes intended. So in other words, we wanted to limit the amount of additional information that the pilots had to come in and change. So you'll notice that I've got Redbird as my departure airport, San Antonio as my destination. Now I just need to come in and fill in the blanks. So I can say I'm going to depart here in 3 hours. Let me go up to 180. No, 120. There you go. Learn something new every day. 120 is the maximum. So let's do that. About 5 minutes from now, I'm going to need a new altitude here. Going back, we're going to take an odd altitude. And let's see. Surveillance equipment, route of flight, we're good there. Destination, we can calculate our EET. Let's see what we get. Should be pretty close to what we had before. It's thinking. Still thinking. Uh-oh, I broke it. Let's try that one more time. Hey, that's a winner. So it'll take us 10 minutes to get back. Again, if you ever get one of those error screens, not to fear, just do what I did, hit it again, check your internet connection, that kind of thing. It should be working. Fuel endurance, I'm going to fill up. I've still got 5 hours of gas. Everything else here is going to remain the same, and I'm done, and I'm ready to file that return flight plan. I strongly caution pilots, and this is a Jeff Arnold Hot Sports opinion. You'll see these in our presentations and our webinars and all that kind of thing. But I strongly advise pilots against filing round robin flight plans. A round robin flight plan would be Redbird to, say, San Antonio, and then back to Redbird with 5 hours en route or whatever it is. The reason why I caution you away from a flight plan like this, flight service does not start VFR search and rescue until 30 minutes after your estimated time of arrival. So, for example, where we had an hour and 55 minutes on our last flight plan, let's say for whatever reason you don't close in time and 30 minutes goes by, we're going to start looking for you about 2.5 hours after we're going to start looking for you 30 minutes after your ETA, 2.5 hours into your flight plan, if that makes sense. In this instance that I have on the screen, with a 5 hour en route time, we won't start looking for you until 5.5 hours later. From when you activate this flight plan. So again, a very far-fetched scenario. God forbid something bad happened on takeoff and nobody sees you. It's 5.5 hours before someone starts looking for you versus 2.5 hours if you file it single leg to single leg. The last thing that I want to show you here is the next leg button. So let's say that I went to Redbird and I was going back to San Antonio and I wanted to go to a different airport. I'd hit the next leg and it's going to do almost the exact same thing as your return flight plan button, except it's going to leave the destination blank and it's going to say, okay, where are you going next? What is the next leg of your flight plan? So this pretty much sums up the flight plan, the form on the plan and brief button. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, shoot us an email, get a hold of us. You can always go down to the bottom of every single flight service webpage and hit the request help or submit feedback button, and you can reach us via that method. We're required to respond to that within, I think, 5 days. Another feature available for you is under the help menu, and that's the frequently asked questions tab. Again, we've recently expanded this from about 20 questions to 125 questions. Again, we have a lot of different categories here. For example, flight planning and briefing. You can come in, take a look through some of this and see if some of your questions are answered. Thank you for tuning in to this instructional video from Leidos Flight Service. We appreciate you being a user, and the phones are on. Call us if and when you need us.